Hi, my name's Anna Prizzia, and I'm here with the IFAS College of Agricultural and Life Sciences Field and Fork program. We're at the Field and Fork Pantry today, and we're here to talk about easy ways to cook on a budget and things you can learn to be a better chef in the kitchen. So today what I wanted to talk about is flexible and intuitive cooking. I am not a professional chef, I just play one on TV. So I learned to cook with my mom. I would spend a lot of time in the kitchen with her, and what she taught me is that you cook what you love, and that by cooking with your intuition, cooking with your taste buds, and really thinking about the flavors you like to go together is the best way to learn how to cook and really enjoy cooking in the kitchen. Today we're going to be working with a lot of fresh products because we grow fresh produce at the farm that we provide here for the Field and Fork Pantry. And fresh eating is a great way to make sure you're getting enough vitamins and minerals in your diet, and also a great way to stretch your budget because you get more nutrition per calorie that you're eating. So we love to make sure everyone's eating fresh. So today what we're going to make first is a frittata, and frittata is really just a fancy word for a baked omelet. And what you put into that omelet or that frittata is really going to be whatever it is that you love to eat. Today what I'm going to put into that frittata is broccoli that came from the farm, and onion, and some cheddar because I love cheese. So we're going to work with those ingredients today, really simple, really easy. And the first thing we're going to do is chop our onion. Actually, the first thing I'm going to do is start my pan and get my pan warm. Whenever you're cooking, you always want a warm pan. And so we are going to get this pan heating up. And once your pan is warm, we'll add some oil and our onion. So when you're cutting an onion, some chefs like to leave the butt end on to kind of hold the whole thing together. I find that really difficult to manage. So I literally just cut off my two ends, cut the onion in half, and then I take off this outer skin because that's really tough. And then I chop it up to the size that I want it. For this, I want it pretty small. So we're gonna do kind of a dice. And I'm just going to do half of this onion because I have another onion prepared for us. And I always have a bowl for compost on my counter so I can collect all of my compost. The great thing with this compost is all it's in here is onions, peels from other things that I've done, stems of different greens we're going to be using today. So I could actually cook this as a stock, and I would have a vegetable stock that I could then use, and that helps me save money. Instead of having to buy the expensive canned or boxed stock at the store, I could make my very own veggie stock with this. I would just pop it in a pan, cover it with water, and simmer it for about an hour, and then strain off all of this, and I would have a decent veggie stock that I could freeze for a future soup or use for the soup we're going to make today. All right, so you just literally slice your onion. Make sure you keep your fingers out of the way. Also make sure you've always washed your hands. Safety and sanitation is always important in the kitchen. These times more than ever, but always, always important. Make sure all of your dishes, all of your veggies, and your hands are always washed. So I just sliced it one way, and then I spin the onion and I slice it the other way, however big I want my squares. And there you have it. You've got your chopped onion, okay? So we're gonna take that chopped onion, and I have some more prepared over here in the TV fashion that I already chopped, and we're gonna see if our pan is hot. It's getting there. Crank up the heat a little bit, and we're gonna put some oil in the pan. I like to use an olive oil, a light olive oil blend that's cooking, good for cooking. You don't want any fancy olive oils. You'll spend a fortune, and they really aren't any for cooking. You don't really need that. You can also use any other oils that you happen to have in your house. I like olive oil because it's low in some of our, it's good for you. It's got some good properties, so I like to use olive oil. You're gonna put about a tablespoon or so in your pan. And once that pan warms up, we'll get the onions in that pan and start sauteing them. While we're waiting on that, the other thing we're gonna do is our broccoli. And with the broccoli, this is broccoli from the farm, so it's beautiful. It has all of its lovely leaves on it. And so we're gonna use the leaves and the heads of the broccoli. If you don't have the leaves of the broccoli, you can always get yourself some kale. This is a lacinato kale. There's also the curly kale that you may be more familiar with, and you can use kale as your greens for your frittata. And then you've got some kale that you could also make a nice kale salad out of later in the week. And then you're just gonna cut your heads. I don't like a lot of stem because it's harder and it takes a lot longer to cook. So for this recipe, I'm leaving the stem out. But you could save those stems, and they're tender enough that you can grate them up, and then you can add them to a salad. A lot of people, there's actually broccoli slaw recipes out there that you can find on the internet. You could use it for that. It's another tip to help save money and use all of your food. But for today, we're not going to be using the stems. We're just going to be using the flowers. Did you know broccoli was a flower? So we just cut those up, and I like them to be, for this recipe, you want everything to be, think bite size. You don't want anything too big. You want it to cook easily, and so you're going to cut them about bite size. And I'm going to set these aside because I've already cut up some broccoli for us over here. But we have some broccoli for our frittata cut up in sort of bite-sized chunks. And I cut up the leaves here into just small pieces so that we could add those to our frittata too. Feels like our pan is getting hot. So we're gonna put our onion in. You want about one full small onion, but you can do it to taste. Again, this is about intuitive cooking. So if you don't like onion, don't add onion. This recipe is really flexible. Any vegetables you like, you can add. If you aren't a broccoli fan, you could sub in zucchini or peppers or even carrots if you wanted. Really, you can sub anything in. If it's a harder vegetable, something like a root, you may want to steam it first so that it has a chance to cook a little bit more before it goes into your pan. But otherwise, we're just getting the heat going here. This thing is taking a while to get hot. So one of the things that I think is important when you're thinking about cooking a recipe like this is that it can be used a bunch of different ways, right? So today we're going to be making the frittata, but tomorrow you could throw this into a wrap and add some other fresh veggies, and it could be a breakfast wrap in the morning. You could add some black beans and some salsa to it, and you would have a nice veggie egg wrap in the morning. And you could always chop it up and scramble it with some of your favorite meat or tofu or something like that, and have another scramble for a different style breakfast. So I try to make things that can be made into other things. And so really with this, though, I like to always add cheese. I'm a big cheese fan, so we're gonna grate some cheese here. And probably we're gonna use about 4 ounces of cheese, maybe 3 ounces of cheese. Let's see, this is a 8-ounce block, I think. So yeah, this is an 8-ounce block. So yeah, I used this is about 2 ounces of cheese, 2 to 3 ounces of cheese. You can use as much or as little cheese as you like, and if you're not a dairy fan, you can skip it all together. I'm gonna grate this up, and then that will get mixed in with my egg, and we'll do the eggs next. One thing I love about this recipe too is that eggs are a really inexpensive protein. So protein is a really important part of our diet, and oftentimes it can be the most expensive part of our diet. Like often meats, especially if you're not a vegetarian, are really expensive. And so this is a great way to get some good protein in your diet and have it be inexpensive. So there's my cheese all grated up. And now we're gonna scramble our eggs. And if you don't want to, if you're planning on using your compost for a broth, be sure you don't put any meats or fats into that compost because you don't want that meat or fat in your broth, first of all. And if you're gonna be composting it in your backyard to build soil for your garden, meats and fats can attract animals and pests that you don't want. So you should always throw away your meats and fats. You can, if you're going to put it in your garden, rinse your eggshells out and put eggshells in the garden though. They're a source of calcium and they can be great for the garden, but you don't want them in your broth. So for me today, I'm going to be getting rid of those eggshells. And depending on how big you want your frittata, if you're just making a small frittata, you could literally use a handful of broccoli, a handful of these, a little tiny bit of onion, and make yourself your own little single serving frittata. I like to make a big one and then have it for the whole week. So I can have it for breakfast wraps or dinner and with my friends and family. So I like to do about 5 eggs. And again, like I said, intuitive cooking. If you want to make it smaller, use less eggs and less ingredients. If you want to make it bigger, you can use more eggs. I've even made a 12 egg frittata before with a really, really big frying pan. So really, you can kind of expand this and contract it the way that you want. And it's hard to mess this up. I'm not a very, I don't like to measure things exactly. I like to follow things kind of, sort of. So for me, this kind of recipe is perfect because you can't really mess it up if you add a little too much of this or a little too much of that. So you're gonna want some milk. If you don't have milk, you can use water, but you're gonna want something just to thin the egg out a little bit. I like milk because it gives it a richer texture, adds a little bit more protein, and it's gonna add maybe not even a 1/4 cup of milk, like maybe 2 tablespoons of milk or so, just enough to kind of thin out the eggs a little bit. And normally you would scramble these with a fork, but I don't have a fork, so I'm being adaptive today with a spoon. And we're scrambling up the eggs. You can see we're just gonna get them nice and beat up, get them all mixed together so everything looks uniform in color. And your eggs are ready to go in the pan once our veggies are ready. We're gonna toss our cheese into that. And if you want to, you can save some of this cheese out. If you have an oven at home, you can save some of this cheese out. And once your frittata is done, you can sprinkle a little of that cheese on top and pop it in the oven and brown it. It makes it look really pretty. But today, since we're cooking with all stovetop, we're just gonna put all the cheese right inside the egg. So we have it all inside there, and we're just gonna set that off for now while we wait on our veggies. Another great way to save money when you're cooking is to eat seasonally, right? To eat fresh food, we talked about that, but also to eat seasonally. So that means buying things that are growing in our climate at this time of year. And right now we're in winter, and so it is the time of year when leafy greens are growing and root crops are growing. So you'll notice I'm featuring a lot of roots and leafy greens in our cooking today. And all of this is available at your local farmer's market and here at the Field and Fork Pantry. So I just added the broccoli that we chopped up and the broccoli leaves that we chopped up, and greens really shrink down when you cook them, so you add more than you think you would. Probably I added about 2 or 3 loose cups of greens here, and they'll shrink down to about a cup. And then I have our broccoli bites in here, and I like my frittata to be really full of veggies, like almost as much veggies as it is egg, because I really like a really hearty frittata. But if you tend to like your quiches or omelets or frittatas, if you ever had one with lighter amounts in, then you can, again, just add what you like, add the amount that you want. And again, you're looking for bite-sized chunks. My broccoli might be a little big here, but and you're just gonna saute that until it looks like it's cooked down a bit. And once that's cooked down a bit, you'll pour your egg in. And then we're gonna put the lid on and we're gonna let it cook on its own until it's nice and firm. And essentially, it's like a crustless quiche. All right, so my veggies have sauteed till they're nice and tender, and the onions are clear, the greens have wilted down, and my broccoli is getting tender. And if you like your broccoli a little more tender, you can always steam it before you add it into the pan to make it a little more tender. But all of it's ready to go, in my opinion. So I'm adding a little bit more oil to the pan so that my egg doesn't stick. So maybe another little less than a tablespoon of oil to the pan. And just get that in there so that your eggs don't stick to your pan. And now I'm gonna I'm turning down my pan a little bit because I don't want this to burn while it's cooking. So you'll turn it down to kind of a medium-low. And then you're just gonna pour your eggs over the veggies and kind of rock the pan around so that you have all the veggies kind of covered. And if you notice you've got a bunch of veggies in one place, that you can kind of move those around, but you don't want to hit the bottom of the pan too much because you want that to settle and turn into a nice kind of almost like an omelet. Okay, so we're gonna let that cook. We've got the pan down on this is probably like a medium-low. And we're gonna watch it for a few minutes just to see it start to get firm and settle up. And then once you start to see it really firming and settling up, then we'll put the lid on it so it can finish cooking. We will have a beautiful frittata in just about 20 minutes. All right, so here is our finished frittata. You can see it's fully set. There's no runny egg. One of the tricks that I like is as it's cooking on that medium to low, medium high is You're gonna be really tempted to keep peeking like I just did with the lid all the time, but you wanna try to leave the lid on. The other thing is you can take a rubber spatula or a metal one if that's all you have and kind of run it around the rim every so often and kind of slide the runny egg that's on top and let it kind of get underneath so it'll cook a little bit faster. So every so often you can do that, and eventually you'll have this nice setup, beautiful frittata full of delicious fresh veggies and cheese, a great full meal right here in a single pan. And the easy thing is now you just cut off a slice and you can serve yourself. So we'll just cut out a slice here, just like you're doing a nice pie. You serve it like that. And I like to sometimes make like a nice green salad or something like that to go with this if I'm trying to serve it as a meal. Otherwise, it's a great meal on the go. It's delicious cold as well. So if you want to make this and then have it in your fridge for the rest of the week, you can slice it up, pop it in some Tupperware containers and have it ready to go. So for just a few dollars, you've made a beautiful meal that you can eat on all week long. And again, you can use the leftovers you have in your fridge. Any veggies that you love and have, frozen or fresh, are great. And you can really adapt this with the kinds of cheeses you like, with the kinds of vegetables you like. You can even add in meats or other starches like potatoes or even rice.